The night was cold and silent in the scrapyard. Mountains of broken ships stood like giant skeletons in the darkness. The moonlight touched the metal piles, making them shine like sharp knives. Some parts still had old paint, red and blue, but most were burnt black. A thin fog moved between the wreckage like a ghost. It was the kind of place where people came to forget what they had lost, and sometimes to leave things behind forever. Far away, a slow, weak sound broke the silence. It was not the sound of wind or metal falling. It was softer, like something trying to move but failing. Under one pile of old ship panels, a shadow shifted. The shadow was not a piece of metal. It was alive. Her name was Sarah, though no human knew that yet. Her skin was pale silver, smooth like stone, polished by water. Her eyes were large and bright, reflecting the faint moonlight. Her body lay twisted, trapped between a broken wing and a fuel tank. Her arms could not move. Her legs felt nothing. Pain throbbed inside her, but she had no strength left to scream. Hours ago, she had seen her family's ship rise into the air. She had watched the lights disappear into the black sky. No goodbye, no promise to return, just the cold air left behind. She knew what that meant. They had decided she was useless now, a burden, too weak to fight, too broken to keep. She closed her eyes, trying not to think about it. The scrapyard smelled of rust and burnt oil. She could hear tiny metal insects crawling inside the wrecks. A distant hum of guard drones moving through the piles made her tense. The drones had one rule: anything not registered as valuable was destroyed. And in her current state, she was nothing but trash to them. The sound of footsteps reached her ears. Slow, careful steps on loose metal. She opened her eyes again, trying to see through the fog. A human figure was moving between the wrecks. The person carried a small light, its beam cutting through the darkness for a moment. Sarah thought it was one of the scrapyard workers who would call the drones. She turned her head away, hoping to hide, but a soft groan escaped her lips before she could stop it. The footsteps stopped. The light froze in place. Then the human voice spoke, low and unsure. "Hello? Is someone here?" Sarah's heart raced. Should she answer or stay silent? She remembered the warnings her people had given about humans, that they were dangerous, selfish, and cruel. But her family had been dangerous, selfish, and cruel too. She let her voice out, weak and trembling. "Help, please." The beam of light shifted and fell directly on her face. The human gasped quietly, stepping closer. She could see him now, a young man with messy brown hair and old clothes covered in dust. His eyes widened as he saw her silver skin and alien eyes. Instead of running, he crouched down, his expression mixed with fear and curiosity. "What happened to you?" he asked. She tried to answer, but her throat felt dry like sand. Only one word came out again: "Help." Before he could speak, a sharp electronic noise echoed through the scrapyard. Sarah's body stiffened. She knew that sound. The guard drones were near. The man looked around, his face tightening. "You can't stay here," he whispered. "They'll destroy you." The red scanning lights of the drones began to appear between the piles. They moved slowly, but with purpose, their metal arms ready to cut and burn. Sarah tried to move, but her body refused. The man looked at her, then at the lights. He bit his lip, thinking fast. Finally, he slid his arms under her and pulled her free from the wreckage. With a grunt, she gasped in pain but didn't fight him. The drone's red beams swept closer. He carried her behind a half-buried cargo container and crouched low. "Stay quiet," he said, his voice barely a breath. The drones passed, their scanners humming. One stopped, its red beam brushing across the edge of the container. Sarah's chest tightened. The man held his breath, his hand steadying her head so it wouldn't fall into view. The beam lingered, then moved away. The Drones continued down the path, their noise fading into the distance. The man slowly let out the breath he had been holding. He looked at her again, shaking his head like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "What are you?" he whispered. Her lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "Alive," she said, above them. The night sky was silent, but deep inside Syrah's mind, she knew this was only the beginning. Her family might have left her to die, but if they discovered a human had found her, they would come back, and not for rescue. This human, whoever he was, had just stepped into a danger bigger than he could imagine. The young man's name was Evan, though no one in the scrapyard ever bothered to ask. He came there almost every night, searching for parts he could sell. His life was simple. Find something broken, fix it, sell it, eat for another day. But that night was different. That night, the air felt heavy, like something was watching from the shadows. Evan's boots crunched on broken glass and loose bolts as he walked. His small flashlight swung in his hand, sending quick flashes over piles of metal. He had heard rumors about the scrapyard, strange sounds, lights that weren't from drones. He never believed them until tonight. The voice he had just heard was soft but desperate. It didn't sound like any scrapyard worker or thief. It sounded like someone clinging to the last thread of hope. Evan's heart beat faster as he followed the sound. He stepped over an old wing, ducked under a bent support beam, and there she was. She lay half-hidden under panels and wires. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the flashlight's beam. Her eyes were wide and bright, like liquid light. Her lips trembled as she whispered again. "Help!" Evan froze. He had seen aliens before. The colony sometimes traded with them, but none looked like her, and none were lying half dead in a scrapyard. He crouched beside her, unsure what to do. Her arms were limp, her legs didn't move, her breathing was shallow. "What happened to you?" he asked, his voice low. She didn't answer, only looked at him with a mix of fear and hope. The sound of worry broke the moment. Evan's stomach sank. Guard drones. He knew their pattern, their speed, and what they did to anything unregistered. And he knew they would not hesitate for a second if they found her. He looked around, scanning for cover. A half-buried cargo container stood nearby. If he could get her there, they might avoid the scan, without thinking twice. Evan slid his arms. Under her body, she was lighter than he expected, but her frame felt delicate. She let out a small sound of pain, and he whispered, "Sorry, sorry," as he carried her. The red scanning lights grew brighter. One drone passed close enough for him to hear its metallic joints moving. Evan ducked behind the container, pressing her gently to the ground. "Stay still," he breathed. The drone paused. Its red beam swept across the ground. Evan pressed his back to the metal. Holding his breath, Syrah closed her eyes, afraid that even her gaze might draw attention. The beam hovered for a long moment, then moved away. The sound of the drone faded into the distance. Evan let out a long breath that was too close. He murmured. He turned back to her. Her eyes met his. He saw gratitude there, but also a deep, heavy sadness. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Syrah." The name felt strange and soft in his mouth when he repeated it. "I'm Evan," he said. She nodded weakly. "I can't stay here," she whispered. "They will come." Her voice was like a warning wrapped in fear. Evan frowned. "Who's coming?" "The drones," he asked. She shook her head slowly. "No." Worse, her gaze shifted to the night sky. Evan followed her eyes but saw only stars. Still, the way she looked made him uneasy. It was as if she was expecting a shadow to block out the stars at any moment. He didn't know why, but Evan made a decision right then. He was not going to leave her here. He had no plan, no idea how to help her, but leaving her felt wrong. and something in her voice told him that if he walked away now, she would be gone forever. "Can you move at all?" he asked. She tried to lift her arm, but it fell back. "No," she admitted. Evan chewed his lip, thinking, "I've got a hovercard nearby," he said. "I can take you to my place, at least for tonight." Her eyes widened. "You would do that? For me?" He almost laughed at the question. "Yeah? Well, I'm not in the habit of letting people get vaporized," he replied. They moved carefully through the scrapyard, Evan pulling the hovercart over uneven ground. Every sound made them tense, a clank of metal, the distant hum of another drone. Syrah's eyes never left the sky. Finally, they reached the outer fence. Evan scanned the gate with a stolen code key, and it opened with a soft click. As they slipped out, Evan felt a strange mix of relief and worry. Relief because they had escaped the drones. Worry because he still didn't know who she was running from or why she had been left here to die. He glanced at her once more as they crossed the empty road. She looked fragile, yet there was something in her eyes that felt unbreakable. He didn't know it yet. But saving her was the easiest part. The hard part was surviving what would come next. Far above them, hidden in the darkness, something moved among the stars, watching, waiting. The hovercart's wheels hummed softly as Evan pushed it through the quiet streets. Syrah lay on the cart, her head turned to watch the sky. The night air was cold, carrying the faint smell of metal from the scrapyard. Evan kept looking over his shoulder. Something in her warning still echoed in his mind. They will come. Not just drones, she had said. They had almost reached the old maintenance tunnel when the hum of guard drones returned. This time, it was louder, sharper. Evan's stomach tightened. He pushed the cart faster, his boots hitting the ground. Hard, Syrah's eyes widened. "They found us," she whispered. A red beam of light cut through the darkness behind them. One drone swooped low, its scanners locking onto the hovercart. Evan cursed under his breath. He shoved the cart toward a stack of abandoned cargo crates. "Hold on," he told her. He grabbed the side of the cart and pulled it into the narrow gap between crates. Metal scraped against metal, the sound ringing out into the night. The drone's beam swept past, then froze. A mechanical voice spoke. Cold and flat. Unregistered object detected. The whir of charging weapons filled the air. Evan's heart raced. He had no real weapon, only the heavy wrench he carried for repairs. But running was not an option. Syrah could not move. The drone floated closer, its red beam now fixed on them. Syrah's breathing quickened. "Leave me," she said suddenly. Evan looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Not happening," he said. He stepped in front of the cart, wrench in hand. The drone fired a warning shot, a burst of heat that scorched the crate beside them. Evan didn't wait for a second shot. He lunged forward and slammed the wrench into the drone's scanner lens. Sparks exploded, the machine jerking back. He swung again, hitting one of its rotors. The drone tilted wildly, its lights flickering. Then, with a sharp crack, it crashed into the ground, pieces scattering. Evan didn't waste time. "Move, move, move," he muttered as he pushed the cart out of the gap. But the sound of more drones filled the air. 3 of them this time, flying low and fast. "They won't stop," Syrah warned, her voice tense. Evan's mind raced. If he took the main road, they'd be easy to spot. If he stayed in the alleys, it would be slower but safer. He chose the alleys. The path was narrow, lined with rusting fences and broken lights. The hovercart rattled over loose stones. Evan's breath came in short bursts. Syrah kept her gaze upward. "They are not just drones," she murmured again, almost to herself. Evan glanced at her but said nothing. His focus was on getting them both out alive. One of the drones appeared ahead, blocking the alley. Its red beam swept side to side like a predator searching for prey. Evan slowed, looking for another way around. There was none. He spotted a half-open service hatch in the wall to their left. It was barely wide enough for the cart. "Hang on," he told Sierra. He turned the cart sharply and forced it toward the hatch. Metal screeched as the cart squeezed through. The drone turned its beam toward the noise. Evan dove inside, pulling the cart fully into the dark tunnel just as the beam touched the hatch. The tunnel smelled of damp metal and old oil. Faint water dripped somewhere in the distance. Evan pulled the cart deeper, keeping the light from his flashlight low. The hum of drones outside faded. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Sierra spoke. "They will track the heat from your body. They will find us here." Evan paused. "Then we keep moving," he said. He pushed on until they reached a rusted ladder that led up to a side street. The street was quiet, lit only by a flickering lamp. Evan lifted Sarah out of the cart and carried her to a doorway for cover. "You're heavier than you look," he muttered with a faint smile. She didn't smile back. "They are not here for me only," she said. "They will remove anyone who helps me." Evan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Before he could reply, a shadow passed over the street. He looked up, high above. Lights moved against the stars, but these were not drones. The shape was bigger, slower, deliberate. Asira's eyes locked on it. "They came back," she whispered, her voice trembling. Evan didn't understand yet. But the truth was simple. The danger had just grown. The drones were only the first wave. What came next would be worse. Much worse. The shape in the sky grew larger. It moved slowly, but with purpose, like a predator circling its prey. Evan stared at it, unsure if it was a transport or a warship. Sierra didn't take her eyes off it. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried weight. "That is my family's ship," she said. "They are not here to save me." Evan's chest tightened. He thought of the drones they had just escaped, if that ship was connected to them. The danger was far from over. "We need to move now," he said. He helped Sierra back into the hover cart. Her body was weak, but her gaze was sharp, scanning the sky as if she knew exactly what was coming. The hum of engines echoed above. A spotlight burst to life, sweeping across the ground. Evan pushed the cart into the nearest alley. The beam passed over the main street. Missing them by seconds, Sierra gripped the side of the cart, her voice low. "They will send soldiers. They do not leave witnesses." Evan's mind raced. He didn't know why they wanted her gone. He didn't even know why he was helping her. All he knew was that if he left her behind, it would haunt him forever. They took a sharp turn into a narrow passage between old storage buildings. The path was littered with broken crates and metal scraps. The hover cart rattled and shook as Evan pushed it faster, behind them. The low thrum of a shuttle's engines began to close in. Sierra's breathing grew tense. "They are landing nearby," she warned. Evan cursed under his breath. "There's an old drainage tunnel ahead," he said. "If we can get inside, they'll have a harder time tracking us." They reached the tunnel entrance, a rusted metal grate, half hidden under debris. Evan kicked away the junk and pulled at the grate. It groaned loudly, the sound echoing in the dark street. "Faster," Sierra urged. He managed to pull it free and rolled the cart inside. The tunnel was narrow, the floor slick with water. The air smelled of rust and rot, but it was cover, and right now, that was all they needed. Above, the sound of boots hitting the ground cut through the night. Multiple voices spoke in a sharp alien tongue. Evan didn't understand the words, right, but the tone was clear orders. He crouched low, pushing the cart deeper into the tunnel. The voices grew closer. One soldier's boot splashed into the entrance. Evan froze, his hand on the wrench at his belt. A beam of light swept into the tunnel. It passed over the walls, the water. Evan and Sierra pressed themselves against the side. The light moved toward them, then stopped. A crackle came from the soldier's communicator. The light turned away. Boots retreated. Evan exhaled slowly. That was too close, he whispered. They kept moving until the tunnel split into two paths. Sierra tilted her head, listening. Left, she said. Evan didn't question it. He turned left after a few minutes. The tunnel opened into an old service chamber. Faint daylight leaked through a broken vent above. Evan set the cart down and looked at her. All right, you need to tell me what's going on, he said. She met his eyes. My family is part of the core fleet, she said. We are warriors, traders, and hunters. Evan's brow furrowed, and they left. You in a scrapyard? Her gaze dropped. I refused an order, she said quietly. They wanted me to attack a human settlement. I said no. They said a soldier who will not fight is not a soldier at all. Evan felt a chill. They're here to kill you because you refused. They are here to erase me, she said, and anyone who helps me, before Evan could reply. A loud metallic crash echoed through the tunnel behind them. Sierra's head snapped up. They found the entrance. She said. Evan grabbed the cart handles and pushed hard toward the vent. Sunlight poured down through the gap. It was their only way out. He positioned the cart under it and climbed up. The metal was sharp and hot under his hands. He reached the surface and pulled Sero up after him. Her body was light but fragile. Every movement seemed to cause her pain. They emerged into an abandoned lot filled with weeds and rusted machinery. In the distance, the silhouette of the Kareth ship hung in the sky. Small shuttles were detaching from it, descending toward the city. Evan's jaw tightened. They're spreading out, he said. Sierra's voice was firm, despite her weakness. They will search every street, every building. Evan scanned the horizon. There was only one place they could go. The old freight station at the edge of the colony. It was huge, full of hiding spots, and most importantly, it had underground access to the spaceport. If we get there, we might find a ship to get you off-world, he said. Sierra nodded slowly. But they will not let us reach it, she warned. A sudden roar split the air. Evan turned just in time to see a Korath soldier leap from a rooftop. Landing only a few meters away, the alien was tall, armored, and armed with a long energy spear. Its visor glowed a deep red. It looked from Evan to Sierra, then spoke in the same sharp language he had heard earlier. Sierra's face hardened. That's my brother, she said. Evan's grip tightened on his wrench. The escape from the scrapyard had just turned into a fight for their lives. The Korath soldier stood tall, his shadow stretching across the cracked ground. His armor was dark silver, marked with sharp lines that glowed faint red. The energy spear in his hand hummed softly, its tip bright with deadly light. Evan held his wrench tighter, but he knew he was no match for a trained alien warrior. The soldier's visor shifted toward Sierra, and a cold laugh escaped from his helmet. He spoke in the Korath language. The words fast and sharp. Sierra's expression tightened. She answered in the same tongue, her voice steady but low. Evan couldn't understand a single word, but he could feel the tension in the air. It was the kind of silence before a storm, finally. Sierra turned her head toward Evan. This is Core, she said. My brother. Evan blinked. Your brother? Sierra nodded slowly, her voice flat. He is here to take me back, she said, but not to save me. Core spoke again, his tone like someone giving an order. Sierra's eyes narrowed. He says I can return to the ship, he says. Our family will forgive me if I come quietly. Evan frowned. And you believe that? She shook her head. No, forgiveness is not their way. If I step onto that ship, we'll not step off again. Core's gaze shifted to Evan. The visor glowed brighter. He spoke again, slower this time. Sierra's jaw tightened. He says, you will not be harmed if you walk away. Evan almost laughed. Yeah, I've heard that line before, he muttered. Sira's eyes softened for just a moment. "You should go," she said. "This fight is not yours." Evan shook his head. "Too late for that," he said. Kor's hand tightened on his spear. The humming sound grew louder. In a flash, he moved forward. Evan barely had time to pull Siro behind him before the spear struck the ground where she had been. The hit sent sparks into the air, the heat making Evan's skin sting. Kor stepped back, his voice rising as he spoke into his helmet. Evan could hear faint replies from above, more Kareth voices. "They're calling more soldiers," Siro warned. Evan's eyes darted to the edges of the lot. They had to move. He spotted a rusted transport frame nearby. "It's inside hollow. This way," he said. He pulled the hovercart toward it. Sira gripping the sides to keep from falling. Kor followed, his steps calm but fast. Evan pushed the cart into the frame. Inside, the shadows were thick. The smell of oil straw. Sira leaned close, her voice low. "Kor will not stop until I am gone, and if he cannot take me alive, he will take me dead." Evan swallowed hard. Why? Why is he so ready to kill his own sister? Sira's gaze dropped. "In our family, loyalty to the fleet comes before blood. I shamed them. I refused the attack on the human colony. He believes killing me is the only way to restore honor." Her words were steady, but her eyes betrayed. The pain beneath, Evan felt a flare of anger in his chest. "That's not honor," he said. "That's cowardice." Outside, the sound of boots grew louder. Kor's voice rang out. Ordering the others to surround the area, Evan knew they had only seconds before they were trapped. He scanned the inside of the transport frame and spotted a hatch in the floor. "Can you fit through there?" he asked. Sira nodded weakly. Evan pried it open. Below was a drop into another drainage passage. He helped her down carefully, then followed. Closing the hatch above them, the tunnel below was dark and narrow. Evan's flashlight cut a thin path through the black. Sira's breathing was shallow, but her eyes stayed alert. "They will track us," she said. "They know these tunnels. Then we have to get somewhere they can't follow." Evan replied, "There's a freight station ahead if we can make it. We might get to the spaceport." They moved as quickly as they could. The sound of water splashing under their steps. Above, faint echoes of Kareth soldiers could be heard. It was only a matter of time before they dropped into the tunnels. Sira looked at Evan. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You could leave now, and they might spare you." Evan gave her a half-smile. "Pretty sure we passed might spare me about an hour ago." The tunnel bent sharply, leading to a rusted metal door. Evan pushed it open. Behind it was a dimly lit corridor with wide tracks running through the floor. The old freight station. Dust covered everything. The air was still, but the wide space offered more options to hide. They rolled the cart. Inside, the door clanging shut behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Then a deep rumble echoed above. Sira's head tilted toward the sound. "That is not a drone," she whispered. A heavy crash shook the station. Dust falling from the ceiling. Evan's gut twisted. "They're landing on the roof," he said. Sira's voice was almost a whisper. "Kor will come down himself this time." Evan gripped his wrench. His pulse was racing. He didn't know how they would win this, but he knew one thing. Leaving her behind was not an option. The roof of the freight station groaned under the weight of the Kareth landing craft. Metal dust fell in tiny clouds, drifting down through the cracks in the ceiling. Evan tightened his grip on the wrench. He stood in front of Sira's hovercart, ready to protect her, even though his hands were shaking. Sira's silver eyes followed the sound above. Her voice was calm, but her words were heavy. "They will come fast. When they do, there is no talking, only survival." The first breach came with a deafening crash. A section of the ceiling exploded inward, sending debris and dust raining down. From the hole dropped to Kareth soldiers in full armor. Their boots hit the floor hard, weapons raised. Evan ducked behind a cargo container, pulling Sira with him. A bolt of energy seared the air where they had just been. The heat burned against his skin. He didn't need Sarah to tell him that a direct hit would kill instantly. Kor landed next, dropping from the ship like a predator. His energy spear glowed brighter than before. The red visor locked on Sira immediately. "End this, sister," he called in his language. Sira's reply was short, bitter. "You ended it the day you left me." The two soldiers fanned out, circling. Around the cargo stacks, Evan's mind raced. They couldn't stay pinned. He spotted an overhead walkway running across the station. If he could reach it, he might distract them long enough for Sira to get away. "Stay low," he told her. Then he dashed out from cover. The soldiers' visors snapped toward him. Energy bolts ripped through the air. He zigzagged between crates. The smell of scorched metal following him. Sira knew she couldn't move much. But she still had her mind and her voice. She called out something sharp in the Kareth tongue. The nearest soldier paused for a split second. Confused, that was enough for Evan to swing the wrench into the side of its helmet. The blow knocked. The soldier off balance, the weapon clattered to the ground. Evan kicked it away before the soldier could recover. Kor's voice roared across the station. He leaped from the walkway, spear aimed for Evan's chest. Evan barely rolled aside in time. The spear struck the floor, sparks bursting up. Kor wrenched it free and swung again. Evan blocked with the wrench, the metal vibrating painfully in his hands. Sira watched, her jaw tight. She could see Evan tiring. Every swing of Kor's spear was faster, sharper. She knew her brother. He was toying with Evan, drawing out the fight. She couldn't let it end like this. Her fingers twitched against the side of the cart. Pain shot through her body as she forced her arm to move. She reached toward the fallen soldier's weapon. Her hand closed around the grip, the metal burning cold against her skin. With effort, she aimed and fired. The energy bolt struck Kor's spear. Knocking it off its attack line, Evan seized the moment, smashing his wrench into Kor's side. The armor absorbed most of the hit. But the impact made Kor stumble. His red visor flashed angrily. "You fight for him now." He growled at Sira. "I fight for what's right," she answered. The second soldier rushed toward her. Weapon raised, Evan darted forward. Tackling the soldier into a stack of cargo crates, they crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs. Evan wrestled for control of the weapon, finally shoving the soldier away. But Kor was already moving again. He slammed the butt of his spear into Evan's back, sending him sprawling. Sira's heart pounded. She could see Kor raising the spear for the final strike. She didn't think she acted. With every bit of strength left, she rolled herself off the cart and hit the ground. Pain roared through her body, but she ignored it. She lifted the stolen weapon and fired directly at her brother's visor. The bolt cracked against the helmet. The glow flickering, Kor staggered, momentarily, blinded. Evan pushed himself up and lunged forward. He slammed into Kor with all his weight, driving him back into a metal support beam. The impact echoed through the station. Kor dropped the spear. It clattered across the floor, spinning to a stop near Sira's cart. For a moment, no one moved. The other soldier backed toward the hole in the ceiling. Speaking quickly into a communicator, Kor's visor dimmed, his breath heavy. "This is not over," he said. Then he signaled for retreat. The soldiers leaped up toward the landing craft. A roar of engines filled the air. The ship pulled away. Disappearing into the night sky, Evan stood there, chest heaving. He looked at Sarah. She was leaning against the cart, her breathing slow but steady. "You okay?" he asked, her lips curved in the faintest smile. "For now," she said. But her eyes still held that warning. The fight was far from over. Evan knew she was right. They had survived this battle. But the Kareth would come again, and next time they wouldn't leave without her. The freight station was silent after the Kareth ship left. Only the faint hum of broken lights filled the air. Evan leaned against a cargo crate, his chest still aching from the fight. Sira sat back in the hover cart, her silver skin marked with scratches. Her eyes were distant. Fixed on the empty hole in the ceiling, they will return, she said quietly. And when they do, it will be for the last time. Evan nodded. He didn't know how long they had. But he knew they couldn't run forever, if they're going. To find us anyway, he said. Then maybe we should choose where we meet them. Sira's gaze shifted to him. Curious. What do you mean? Evan pointed toward the far side of the station. Beyond the broken doors lay the old spaceport. If they could get there, they could find ships, fuel, and maybe even allies. By dawn, the plan was set. They would move before the Kareth could. Regroup, but by the time they reached the open yard of the spaceport, the sky above had already darkened with shadow. The Kareth ship was back. Its hull gleamed like black ice in the morning light. Shuttles detached from its belly, descending in a perfect formation. Evan's jaw tightened. They're making this the end, he muttered. The shuttles landed in a ring, surrounding the yard. Doors opened, and soldiers poured out in disciplined lines. At the front was Kor, his visor bright again, his energy spear fully charged. This time, there was no taunting, no hesitation. He walked straight toward them. Behind him, a group of Kareth officers stood watching, their armor marked with the symbols of command. Sira straightened in the cart. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. "Let me speak," she said to Evan. He hesitated, then nodded. Kor stopped a few meters away, spear in hand. "You ran," he said in his own language. "You hid behind this human. Now you will face judgment." Sira's voice carried clearly across the yard. "I did not run from judgment," she said. "I ran from dishonor. I ran from a family that attacks the innocent. I ran from you." The officers shifted slightly, their gazes flicking toward Kor. Her words were sharp and deliberate. She was speaking not only to him, but to his crew. "You left me to die in a scrapyard," she continued, "not because I failed, but because I would not kill for you." Kor's grip on his spear tightened. "You are weak," he spat. "No," she said, her voice growing stronger. "I am Kareth. And I remember what that meant before you twisted it. We were protectors once, not butchers." A murmur spread among the soldiers. Evan saw it. The smallest crack in their unity, the officers exchanged quick glances. Kor saw it too, and his visor flared in anger. He stepped forward, pointing his spear at Evan. "This human has poisoned you," he growled. "He is the reason you turned against us." Sira's silver eyes locked on his visor. "This human risked his life for me. This human fought when you left me behind. This human has more honor than you have ever shown." Her words struck like a blade. Some soldiers lowered their weapons slightly. One officer stepped forward, his voice low, but carrying, "Kor, is it true you left your own blood in the scrapyard?" Kor hesitated. The silence was his answer. The officers' faces hardened. Even among the Kareth, abandoning kin was a deep stain. "You lie," Kor snapped at Sarah. But the doubt had already spread. Evan took a step closer to her cart. "You don't have to convince him," he said softly. "Just them." Kor's V's dimmed slightly. He knew control was slipping from his hands. With a roar, he lunged forward. Spear aimed at Sira. Evan moved without thinking. Stepping between them, the spear struck his shoulder, sending him to the ground. Sira's heart lurched with sudden fury. She grabbed the fallen spear from beside him. Pain shot through her body. But she stood, truly stood, for the first time since Evan had found her. The soldiers froze, watching their former comrade rise. Her voice rang out. "I am not weak," she said. "And I will not die here." She thrust the spear forward. Striking Kor's chest plate, the force drove him back, the impact ringing through the yard. His weapon clattered to the ground. The officers stepped in, their hands raised not to help him, but to end the fight. Kor is unfit to lead, one officer declared. The others nodded. The decision was made. 2 soldiers took Kor by the arms and pulled him toward a shuttle. His visor dimmed to black as they dragged him away. The rest of the Kareth stepped back, giving Sarah and Evan space. Sarah lowered the spear, her body trembling. Evan stood beside her, blood on his sleeve. But smiling faintly. "You stood," he said. "For you," she replied. "And for them," she added, nodding toward the soldiers who had witnessed everything. As the Kareth ship rose into the sky, leaving without a fight, Sira looked at Evan. "Sometimes the family you find is stronger than the one you're born with," she said. Evan nodded. "Then I guess you're stuck with me," he replied. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled, not with relief, but with hope.